Revelation 4. After this I looked, and behold, a door was opened in heaven. And the first voice which I heard was as it were a trumpet. It wasn't a literal trumpet, it was as it were a trumpet, talking with me, which said, come up hither, and I will show you things which must be hereafter. Remember, he told him to write the things that you saw, the present, and the future. So things that are future events. Revelation 4:2, and immediately I was in the Spirit. Again, Romans 8:16, the Spirit itself bears witness with our spirit. Revelation 4:2, and behold, a throne was set in heaven, and one sat on the throne, and he that sat was to look upon like jasper and sardis stone, and there was a rainbow round about the throne, in sight like unto an emerald. This represents the law of the Spirit of life. Genesis 9:16-17, and the bow, the rainbow, shall be in the cloud, and I will look upon it that I may remember. See, God didn't have to look at a cloud to see the rainbow. He could look around his throne. What he was remembering was the everlasting covenant, the covenant that's always been there with him, between God and every living creature of all flesh, that is upon the earth. And the God said unto Noah, this is the token of the covenant. What I'm going to make with you is a token of the covenant that already exists. Any covenant God ever made has one thing in common: free will and sowing and reaping. That is the original covenant. That's the rainbow, and it operated in love, was called the law of the Spirit of life. That was what was around the throne. That's in God's very character. You can't separate that from God. We love him because he first loved us. There's your sowing and reaping. But free will, whether you love him or not, he loves you. You can't make God not love you because he is love. Well, that's free will. Revelation 4:4. And round about the throne were 24 seats, and upon the seats I saw 24 elders, sitting clothed in white raiment, and they had on their heads crowns of gold. In Revelation 19:8, and to her, the bride, was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white, for the fine linen is the righteousness of the saints. So they were clothed in white raiment. It's the righteousness. There were a great number of priests and Levites in the temple at all times, according to 1 Chronicles 23:4-5. There were 24,000 priests and priest assistants, 4,000 gatekeepers, 4,000 musicians. They were divided into 24 courses according to their assignment. When a course was on duty, all its members were bound to appear in the temple. Therefore, there were more than 1,300 Levites in the temple at any given time. Although not all of them were serving on the same day, based on this large population, David enlarged the number of the vessels and furniture to be used in the temple. Revelations 1:6, and hath made us kings and priests. So you are a part of that 24 courses when you get saved. You're the priesthood. 24, a number representing the church. All believers in heaven that Jesus brought out of hell in Abraham's bosom at the resurrection. I saw 24 elders sitting. The elder means older or elderly. It's referencing back to those in Noah's day. 1 Peter 3:18-20, for Christ also hath once suffered for sins, just for the unjust, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, but quickened by the Spirit, by which also he went and preached unto the spirits in prison, which sometime were disobedient, when once the long suffering of God waiteth in the days of Noah. Elders, the older. While the ark was preparing, wherein few, that is, 8 souls, were saved by water. And Zechariah 4:11, then answered I and said unto him, what are these 2 olive trees upon the right side of the candlestick and upon the left side of the candlestick? And Zechariah, he sees 2 olive trees. Zechariah 4:14, he said, these are the 2 anointed ones that stand before the Lord of the whole earth. This is the church, the Gentiles, and the Jews. And Romans 11:24 names these 2 olive trees. For if thou were cut out of, number 1, the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and were grafted contrary to nature into a good olive tree, into Israel, how much more shall these, which be of the natural branches, be grafted in of their own olive tree? He's talking about Israel. So there's your 2 olive trees. It's the Gentile, the church, we would follow that category, and the Jews that received Christ. Revelation 4:5, and out of the throne proceedeth lightnings and thunders and voices, and there were 7 lamps of fire burning before the throne, which are the 7 spirits of God, 1 Spirit in the 7 church ages. Revelation 4:6, and before the throne there was a sea of glass, like unto crystal. And in the midst of the throne, and round about the throne, were 4 beasts. This word beast means seraphim. Isaiah 6:1-3, we'll read it in a minute. Full of eyes before and behind, revealing the past and the future. Revelation 4:7, and the first beast, or this seraphim, this angel, they're called seraphims in Isaiah, was like a lion. These four seraphims introduce the four horsemen. And that's why they take on these appearances, to tell us who the four horsemen are. And so he says, this first one here, he has an appearance of a lion. It's Jesus, which represents the Lion of the tribe of Judah. The second beast, the seraphim, like a calf, representing Jesus, the sacrifice, the red horse rider, Revelation 6:4. And the third beast, or the seraphim, the angel, had a face of a man, representing Jesus, the Son of Man, the black horse rider, Revelation 6:5. And the fourth beast, the seraphim, was like a flying eagle. We know who the fourth horseman is because it says it's death, the pale horse rider. It's the devil. So therefore, the flying eagle has something to do with the devil. And so we look and we find in Daniel 7:4 the prophecy that has to do with the devil and eagle's wings. Because that fourth seraphim took on the likeness of an eagle. And he's going to introduce the fourth horseman. And so Daniel saw him. He said he had eagle's wings, and I beheld the wings thereof were plucked. It was lifted up from the earth and made to stand upon his feet as a man, and a man's heart was given him. Well, this was Satan. He left his first estate. He laid aside his body, his eagle's wings, and he stood up as a man and come against Adam and took his heart. The heart of a man is his treasure. So he took Adam's authority. Revelation 4:8, and the four beasts, the seraphims, had each of them 6 wings about him, and they were full of eyes within, and they rested not day or night, saying, Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty, which was, is, and is to come. So here's Isaiah 6:1-3 that tells us that these are seraphims. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw also the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up. His train filled the temple. Above it stood the seraphims. Each of one had 6 wings, which twain covered his face, which twain he covered his feet, which twain he did fly. And they cried unto another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. So it's almost verbatim of what Revelation quotes. Revelation 4:9. And when those beasts, these seraphims, give glory and honor and thanks to him that sat on the throne, who liveth forever and ever, the 24 elders, those Jesus brought out of hell in Abraham's bosom, the Gentiles, those who were disobedient in the days of Noah, and all the Hebrews that died in the wilderness, fall down before him that sat on the throne and worship him that liveth forever and ever, and cast their crowns before the throne, saying, in Revelation 4:11, Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and were created. Colossians 1:16-18, For by him, Jesus, were all things created that are in heaven, that are in the earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones and dominions, or principalities or powers, all things were created by him, for him, and he is before all things, and by him all things consist. He is the head of the body, the church, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in all things he might have preeminence.